Good evening, race fans, and welcome to Podium eSports coverage of the 15th round of Season 2 of Monday Night Racing presented by Tufco Flooring. The Big Green Egg Porsche Challenge at iRacing's virtual circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal, Quebec. Shane Spike, the voice of Podium eSports here, alongside my colleagues Taylor Burris and Justin Prince, with Brian Power punching all the buttons as producer in the virtual production trailer. Tonight, we begin our journey into the final championship 4. We will fight it out for the title in 2 weeks' time at Atlanta Motor Speedway in the trucks of the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. It's the beginning of the round of 7, our penultimate round of the playoffs. 2 races, 7 drivers enter, 4 drivers will advance, and everybody else is just going to be racing for a win, Taylor Burris. So you know when the stakes are this high, there's going to be some drama that is afoot.
There's going to be drama all throughout tonight's race, let alone the rest of the playoffs coming up ahead. But one thing we know for certain is that there will possibly be a couple of spoilers involved who could possibly win tonight's race and prevent anyone who's in the playoffs a chance to guarantee a spot into the Final Four. A couple of drivers like James Davison, Nick Sanchez, Stephen Wilson are just to name a few to keep an eye on. But you never know. This is Monday Night Racing. You never know what to expect. We could even see a surprise winner who's in the playoffs win here tonight at Montreal.
That's right. If any one of our 7 playoffs drivers manage to win either here or with the Xfinity Series cars in Chicagoland next week, no matter what happens, they are locked into the final round of the playoffs, which is a very big incentive, I think, especially for somebody like Will Rogers from Space Station Gaming, who has lots of road course prowess and experience, especially on the sim. We turn to our resident Canadian, Justin Prince, to tell us a little bit more about tonight's Canadian circuit. We are in Montreal and on the Ile Notre Dame as well, but this is a tight, narrow road course which is built for power, built for speed, built to trip you up, and built to, I think on more than a few occasions this night, see drivers bang wheels, bang doors, bang fenders all over each other.
And potentially bang some of the walls around this racetrack, as well as some very tight chicanes around this racetrack and corners, as well as very high speed sections where there will set up opportunities to try and go for passes in some of the harder braking zones. There's going to be several danger zones today, including the run going through towards the Wall of Champions, as well as the run to the Lubango in turn 10 for the tight hairpin to set up the run into the Casino Straight. This is going to be an interesting race overall, and one where survival is going to be key, and making sure you hit your marks and make sure you practice to make sure you're ready to go. All are going to be keys for tonight, James.
Corner exit in particular is so important here, just with the way you carry the power down the straightaways. But we dive into the river just about. We're right on the edge of the St. Lawrence River in the provincial capital of Quebec on the Ile Notre Dame. This is a circuit that in normal times and during the rest of the year, you can actually rent a bicycle and ride around the 2.71 mile, 4.361 kilometers that make up this track, home to the Canadian Grand Prix for the better part of almost 40 years now, and a special place that year in and year out draws so many fans. The weather usually is perfect in the middle of June when Formula One comes here for the Canadian Grand Prix each year. Tonight, we are in the middle of our 10-minute qualifying session. This is a timed race. As a road course race, we'll go for 50 minutes, and there will be a competition caution 25 minutes into proceedings. That's after we take the green flag. So the second half of this race will be a little bit shorter than the first half, Taylor, but still, drivers will have plenty of time to perform and hit their marks and hopefully climb up through the field. Whether or not they run over each other to get to the front or take advantage of others' mistakes is yet to be seen, but you've got room to work with.
You certainly do, and one of the things interesting about this standing start that we'll be having at tonight's beginning of the race is that this could cause a lot of drivers up towards the front of the field, maybe mess up a little bit, but also allow drivers towards the back to make momentous gains of position before they enter the first couple of corners here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. So as we get ready, we have a lot to look forward to.
This time, it is time to fire engines, and to do just that, we'll turn to the winner of our contest on Twitter. It's Josh Jarnigan, who will give the command to fire the motors.
Hello everyone, I'm Josh Jarnigan, and I am honored to be selected as tonight's Grand Marshal. Gentlemen, start your engines!
It is time to bring you our starting grid and tell you who won tonight's BST Shocks Pole Award, which goes to James Davison out of Melbourne, Australia. Sets the fast time with a 1:32.723 to take the top spot on tonight's grid. Davison will lead us to green and see if he can steal a victory away from one of our playoff 7. He'll start alongside DJ Cummings in the number 10 machine, who was also eliminated from the playoffs not too long ago. Big time power up the front. Preston Pardis should have a big hand in this race. He, of course, the two-time defending champion of the SCCA runoff. Stephen Wilson, Will Rogers there as well, Taylor.
Certainly so. As we look a little further down the lineup, we see drivers such as Ruben Garcia Jr., Anthony Alfredo rounding out your top 10, and last week's winner, Max Kennan, in row 11.
Deep in the field, keep an eye on Gary Sexton, Ford Martin, as well keep an eye on Stephen Ellis.
Lots of folks that you'll see here as the rest of the field runs down your screen. Time to take a look at the track facts before we get going. Green flag racing. This is the second Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal. It's a 2.71 mile, 4.36 kilometer circuit that opened in 1978. 14 turns here that we'll get to work with, and it is largely flats in sim. It is the default day for iRacing, May 15th, 2021, right around 3:30 p.m. local time. Air temp of 65 degrees, track temp 91 degrees, winds at the north 2 miles an hour, humidity of 55%. We once again will go for 50 minutes in this Big Green Egg Porsche Challenge, and the 7 drivers you need to watch out for: Nick Degroot, Anthony Alfredo, Preston Pardis, Will Rogers, Max Kennan, Matt Stolnick, and Gabe Wood. Those 7 are the ones that are in line to try and race their way into the championship 4 in 2 weeks' time at Atlanta Motor Speedway. But it is all eyes on Davison and company as we launch off the grid, and we are underway with the Big Green Egg Porsche Challenge at Montreal. And the first 2 or 3 cars got a decent start. Davison leads, Cummings leads, Sanchez in there, who immediately leaps around Will Rogers. So move Nick Sanchez right up into P3. Everybody else working their way through that first set of corners and onto the backstretch with the trio of chicanes these drivers will have to navigate, JP.
Yeah, and it's going to be very difficult for these drivers, especially in the early going, to be able to separate each other out and stay out of trouble. We have some drivers, keep in mind, at the back of the field. You know, the 49 machine and TJ Majors tangled together. The rest of the field got through nice and cleanly through this section where you want to run single file to make sure you get a flow. Dylan Welch, meanwhile, just lost a bit of control and just slammed into Ford Martin.
Yeah, TJ Majors just couldn't get on the brakes in time. Meanwhile, Dylan Welch with some damage to the front end of his machine, and also a little bit of contact there too, Taylor. But that's the way this goes here at Montreal. It can be really tricky, but Welch just caught the grass there on entry into the braking zone and couldn't get the car slowed up in time.
He certainly cannot. Got a little bit of damage to nose that car. More trouble is right there in front of that. The track is blocked. That's Justin Melillo and Greg Stump just blocking that straightaway here before they get to the hairpin, as they are able to get through there quickly, and no other cars were involved in the contact. As we get a look at that replay, there you'll see Justin Melillo making his way into the second chain. Just gets a little bit of a bump right there from Gregory Stump and just sends him up through there, blocking the track as they come out of that second set of chicanes. And then more contact happening, and it looks like another car caught a little bit of damage to the rear end as they see the track block. Drivers trying to negotiate quickly without making contact. And that was a close call for several drivers.
That's a double whammy of Greg Stump for Justin Melillo. Stump got into Melillo on the braking zone, and then Melillo tried to tiptoe through the grass and then got hit by Stump again once they rejoined the racetrack. So twice there's contact, and Melillo really struggling just to get that car back to pit road, as Davison is clear of Sanchez, Cummings, Wilson, and Will Rogers, who slipped back a little bit on this opening lap. Justin Prince started in the 4th spot, or rather started in 6th, was as high up as 3rd, but now back to 4th.
Yeah, that's because of one of the drivers to keep an eye on tonight. It would make a move in Stephen Wilson. Keep an eye on him in that pink machine tonight. And this is a car that can be so different compared to some of the stock cars these drivers may normally run in these types of series, where You have to deal with the heavy steering when it comes to these cars. You have to be precise on your movements and precise on your gears. You can't just be quick on the throttle. You can have potential of massive tire spin if you hit the gas too hard. If you clip the grass, it ends up causing you to get very loose around this racetrack. You need to be very precise when it comes to your movements, and that's why I think James Davison has such a big advantage so far.
James Davison, plenty of experience road racing. We know that so much experience down in the feeder series in Australia. And of course, let's not forget that the largest series in Australia, Supercars, is a road course series in full body machines. A little bit more their own style than this GTE style racing that you see. But the similarities are close enough to where you've got some experience down that line. You're probably going to be pretty successful down this front as well. As we continue to work our way through the opening laps of this big green egg challenge, we look a little further back in this field and see some action and some great shots of this beautiful circuit here. Looking on board with Kobe Moore in the 15 machine. He's looking ahead at Max Kennan in that green and blue Porsche. These two fighting for 9th and 10th on the racetrack, Taylor.
They certainly are as they're coming up to the second set of chicanes right there. A little bit of a brake check right there for Max Kennan. He locks it up just a little bit as they come out of there, heading down this straightaway here. A great opportunity to try to slipstream in order to get by your competitors for this third set of chicanes right here as you ride on board with Kobe Moore, trying to see if he can get his way through. Of course, he's from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, so not too far, as it's considered a home race for him here for Monday Night Racing, as they're now heading their way into the hairpin. We may see a peek out of Kobe Moore to see if he can make it work. Not close enough as they'll head into Les Effingals.
Liffengal is a fantastic place to try and make a move, as Max Kennan, I think, tried to get on the gas a little bit too quickly, but that's part of, I think, just the deceptive nature of corner exit there, JP. You look at the way that fans out, and you see the wall just widen out, and it's almost like the corner fans out and then narrows back up again as you try and get into it, as Kobe Moore just got turned. He and Max Kennan came together right in that final chicane, and Moore's the one that ends up going around. A little bit of words on the radio there too, but Moore goes sideways, and it was a tough one. But as I was saying, as we take a look at the replay between Kennan and Kobe Moore, the exit to Leffingau almost fans out and then comes back in, and if you don't nail your line and race it so that you don't really take advantage of that extra room, it can trip you up, and that's exactly what I think happened to Max Kennan. That was part of the reason why we saw that spin in the first place.
I think in part two, though, he actually clipped the grass on the left side of the racetrack too, James, and that caused him to just snap hard right when he hit the braking zone, but also put him up for grabs for more for him to try to attempt that pass in the first place. You need to be very daring to be able to go from that run and take advantage of that to Casino Straight if you're side by turns 13 and 14 towards the Wall of Champions, and unfortunately, just that clip of the grass escalated what could have been still a pretty difficult pass to try and attempt.
It's a difficult place, and that's a theme that we've seen already in the opening few laps of this race, CB, that we've seen drivers try and take advantage of the extra space that they think they have just because the straights are relatively straightforward here. There aren't too many wide sweeping bends at the second Gilles Villeneuve. So drivers, I think, here more so than a lot of other places try and run on every little last edge of the curve, which is great if you know how to maximize it. There's certainly tenths to be gained if you do it right, but the penalty you pay if you get it wrong. We see TJ Major's already run into trouble a little bit on this front, and a few others. If you manage to clip the grass ever so slightly, even with just the two tires, more often than not, you're going around on corner entry and you're spinning yourself out.
You certainly are, and you have to be so careful and precise with this track. I mean, this track will reward those who mind the curbs, mind the braking points, and take care of their equipment. But it will punish you if you overuse the curbs. Try to push your luck, trying to get too close to the wall, especially towards the Wall of Champions on that final chicane. I mean, James, Justin, how many races we've seen in all forms of motorsports, from Formula One, NASCAR, and sports car racing, where that Wall of Champions can determine a win, as we see contact through the second set of chicanes right there. That's Kobe Moore once again getting involved, and nearly clips, looks like Ruben Garcia Jr.
Kobe Moore just got loose. He tried to send it underneath Gary Sexton and just didn't have the car slowed up in time. It was an aggressive move into the braking zone over, I think that might be turn 6 or 7 that they made contact, but Moore goes sideways. Sexton carries on, and the 15 car now slides back to the 15th position, Justin.
I'd be a little concerned just in case for suspension damage on Gary Sexton, but it just looked like Moore thought about the move, tried to back out of it, but ended up locking up the brakes, and that's where the brake bias and hitting your marks is going to be so critical tonight. If you don't have both of those things dialed in, it can lead to significant contact, and we just seen that case as meanwhile, you see some swapping starting to go a little bit between some of these drivers here.
Meanwhile, very good battle up towards the front. Places 2, 3, and 4 in very good shape. Nick Sanchez has got second, with Stephen Wilson and DJ Cummings in a pretty good battle of their own for the third and fourth spot. Let's not forget Will Rogers is there too. Will, one of the most recent road course race in Monday Night Racing when we took the Pro 2 trucks to Watkins Glen at the very beginning of the year. So we'll see if Rogers can go 2 for 2 in road course races at M&R in 2021, at least to date. But they're all chasing James Davison, who stretched his lead out on Nick Sanchez to a healthy 3.3 seconds in the opening 5 laps.
I think it's safe to say that James Davison is looking for a little bit of redemption. The last time he was in a Porsche in Canada, he didn't end up winning that race. Of course, he was in a heated battle with Will Power, but of course those two got into some late race trouble and unfortunately could not pull off the victory. So we have to see what will happen. Can Davison be able to finally get that win here? And watch as we watch this battle between DJ Cummings as well as Stephen Wilson as they work their way down the Casino Straight. Let's see if Cummings can try to get a slip straight and get to the inside as they go to that final set of chicanes towards the Wall of Champions.
Just have a hunch that this is one of those cases where you really want to try and rebound and answer and respond to DJ Cummings. He was eliminated from the playoffs last week at Rockingham, so no back-to-back Championship 4 appearances for the band out of Westfield, New Jersey. But that's not to say that he doesn't have pace. In a lot of these races, DJ Cummings has been in the mix. Just had a bad stretch in 2 races, but Cummings is one of the more consistent drivers in this series, and to that end, not a huge surprise that we get to a definitely more challenging type of race, and he sits top 5.
Yeah, I don't think it's a surprise we see DJ Cummings up here because he was quick in practice, one of the quickest overall, third in fact on the board, and he's been very smooth on his marks. I think he also knows some of the difficulties when it comes to this track, and just at the same time is thinking big picture here. They know that at the 25 minute mark, drivers will have the opportunity if they need to be able to come down, get some service potentially, etc. It's an opportunity to potentially try maybe save some fuel, maybe save your stuff and try and keep the car clean and try and let the other competitors come back to you as the tires start to wear away for some of these drivers.
Tire wear definitely going to be something you have to be mindful of, and getting back on the throttle the right way at a place like this where corner exit matters so much, TB, just because you spend so much time on straightaways here. That, I think, is the biggest issue that these drivers have to worry about, is that this is a place that really tests you on corner exit and makes it worth every single last tenth you can get. You have to get your corner exits here right, maybe more so than just about any other circuit in iRacing.
I would have to certainly agree with you on that, James, especially when it comes to that hairpin of Lea Epingal, as we see several drivers trying to get out of there right now. The very critical importance is that can help carry you down the Casino Straight in order to make up time or gain ground on positions that you may have lost or are trying to gain in this race. We're watching right now for this battle where they're coming up through the field. That's Ruben Garcia, Garrett Miller, and Stephen Ellis. They're battling for the top 10 position right now as they come through those first couple of chicanes. But you saw how much ground Stephen Ellis was able to gain on Miller just by getting a little bit better out of that hairpin to propel him down the straightaway of the Casino Straight in order to see if he can do it. Couldn't make the pass, but was able to gain time through him and now has to work his way once again through the chicanes.
Stephen Ellis just sort of clicking along here in the 12th spot. You're right on board with the man from Toronto, Ontario. And Ellis, it's not quite the home game that Canadian Tire Motorsport Park was when we went racing with these Porsches the last time, but it's still one of the handful of Canadian races on the calendar for Monday Night Racing in 2000, or at least in Season 2 on the 2021 side of things. So Ellis, certainly with good reason to perform well in front of a decently home crowd, albeit maybe a little bit more francophone than the anglophone we usually hear in Canada, just about everywhere else outside Quebec. But as it stands, it's still James Davis in as there's a great move there from Ellis, who just about got to the inside of Garrett Miller, but had to check up on the exit of Lippengau to get down the Droit de Casino all the way. And Miller is going to not only maintain that spot, but I think gap Ellis by maybe a tenth or two.
Yeah, I just lost a lot of time when it came to that move because that's the tough part when it comes to coming out of the turn 10 complex, James, on trying to set up that move you're hitting upon earlier is sometimes you get the momentum to take the bottom groove, but sometimes you just squeeze down by the car above you on the corner exit, and that can hurt a ton of your momentum and your chance to complete the pass, and in turn, a chance to try and make the move down to Casino Straight. You need to time it up near perfectly and without any contact to be able to do it cleanly and efficiently, and that's where the difficulties lie when it comes to trying to make some moves.
Looking at Ford Martin's on board as he tries to chase down Matt Stolnick in the 41 machine. Those two running in 15th and 16th. And Ford and Stolnick there started in the playoffs together this season, but it is only Stolnick that is still fighting for a spot in the championship for if Stolnick can put together two solid runs this week and next week. And if you're curious, just looking at the drivers in playoff contention, I believe it is Will Rogers leading that group, and then Preston Partis, and then Anthony Alfredo, and then Nick Degroot. And you've got 4 of your 7 there as Ford Martin decides to go off the grass a little bit, misses his exit out of the corners. But you see the line point standings there. Gabe Wood did not take the grid, so Wood will almost certainly have to win in Phoenix, although there are a lot of team members that are on the West Coast swing for NASCAR, so we know that Gabe is out there working with JD Motorsports and Gary Keller as they get set to race in Phoenix, and wish Gabe the best as they hopefully put together a strong set of runs with their fleet on Saturday. You're right on board with Kobe Bourne, but Kinnon's there, Stolnick is there, but you're looking here, and it's the drivers who either have tons of sim experience like the group, or drivers who have road racing experience in some form that are pacing this field right now. Justin Prince, at least amongst the championship 4 contenders in the playoffs, or the round of 7 in the playoffs. Those folks who have done road course racing, running a little bit better, opening up a gap just a little bit.
I have to say, I've been impressed with Anthony Alfredo, though, among those drivers, though, that you talked about, because he had, when it came to mentioning his stream on his perspective for tonight, he mentioned he had never driven here before. Quick turnaround, let's put it that way for Alfredo, because he's getting faster and faster as the laps go. He is learning how this track functions and seems to be doing a nice and smooth job. You can see the fall starting to kick in a little bit, dropping it down by about 3/4 tenths the past couple laps. But right now, he's been doing a good job to pull away from Nick Degroot. He's done a good job on trying to reel in the rest of the drivers. He's in his own bubble where potentially, once things get interesting later on, he might be in a spot to maybe trying to attack for rare positions and try and improve even more so as this racing goes on.
Valid point there, but Alfredo with tons of sim experience and a kind of driver who knows the ins and outs of iRacing enough to where you give him a little bit of seat time, even if it's an entirely new combo to him, like this Porsche 911 RSR at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve is, and he will find a way to figure it out and eventually put down some decent lap times, which is about all you could ask for, especially in a setup like this where you've got road course experience aplenty with Will Rogers and P-Money Preston Partis. And I think if you're Alfredo, Taylor Burris, you're just trying to make sure that you don't put yourself in a tough spot where your back is against the wall when we get to Chicagoland next Monday night in the Xfinity Cup to try and earn a spot in the Final Four.
No, pretty much your absolute goal, if you're someone like Anthony Alfredo who doesn't maybe have the best road course experience, is to try and stay as high as possible as you can. Be one of those drivers who may not be the road course ringer, but be the highest non-road course ringer here tonight would be a big step forward for him in order to guarantee him a spot in the Final Four. However, things do change. We still do have a caution coming at the midway point later on here tonight's race. So maybe come down pit road, get fresh tires, get a little bit bunched back up to the rest of the field, and who knows, maybe somebody in the top 6 may have some problems or start beating doors and continuing to race each other hard, and we could see Alfredo maybe battling for a top 5 or a podium finish.
He's not terribly far away from the top 5 at this point, just 2 spots out, riding in 7th, and trying to chase down Preston Partis, who's only a second up the racetrack, I believe. So Actually, I take it back. That's Will Rogers and
Yeah.
Preston Pardus that are close together. If I can actually read timing and scoring properly, that would be helpful. But if they come together and get together, then you certainly have something to play with here. As we ride on board with Pardus, the man from New Smyrna Beach, Florida, who picked up the victory in the Super Late Models at Michigan back in December. And we could say he has a little bit of experience road racing, Justin Prince, just a hair, I think.
Yeah, a very strong and talented road course racer is Preston Pardus when it comes to both in the real world and the sim, of course, especially with the Mazda MX-5s. Everyone remembers him being that leader before that crazy finish at Daytona earlier this year. And don't forget, he was one of the top competitors in various different sim racing associations and league races on road courses against some of these drivers, including drivers like Rogers and some of the top drivers in all of iRacing when it comes to road course racing in general. He's somebody that is strong when it comes to these road courses, and that's why I think we're seeing him up towards the front so far.
I think he probably won't be complaining about the fact that we've got a road course in the round of 7. It's the kind of place where he can take advantage of the skills that he already possesses to lay down a good finish. And outside of Will Rogers, he's the fastest of our round of 7 playoff drivers. So Pardus, I think, if the idea is to maintain and or gain a little bit on some of your competition, this is a good run and the kind of run that you want to have if you're the 90 to stay in the title hunt. As we go back on board with Stephen Ellis, he rides in 14th, but trying to look around Brendan Beaudoin to take over the 13th position down to the final chicane in the Wall of Champions.
Clips the curb a little bit, tries to go left, right, and then right near the wall without trying to hit that and trying to make ground up on that driver of Brendan Madonia, as we see working his way up through the field, heading to the first couple of chicanes here to kick off another lap. We're closing in on about 5 minutes before our competition caution, as Gary Sexton has decided to come down pit road, so either decided to early fuel and get his pit stop, or had a little bit of damage where he wants to come get it fixed. So very interesting strategy call for Gary Sexton in that number 13 Porsche, as we continue to watch the battle between Ellis and Madonia as they work their way through the second set of chicanes on the backstretch.
They work their way through the chicanes, and as they do, we remind you that tonight's broadcast of Monday Night Racing is brought to you by Big Green Egg. The Big Green Egg versatility is the name of the game. You can grill, roast, smoke, bake, and sear on the all-in-one simple-to-use Big Green Egg. From appetizers and entrees to desserts and soups and pies, the Big Green Egg will exceed all your expectations, and with 7 convenient sizes and a limited lifetime warranty, there's a Big Green Egg to fit any lifestyle. Don't forget to watch the number 9 Big Green Egg Ford Mustang driven by Michael Gass for Jim Beaver Esports in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, and listen to the Cooks and Cars podcast on Saturday mornings on Big Green Egg's social media platforms. Race on over to BigGreenEgg.com for more information and to find your nearest dealer today. James Davison still your leader in this Big Green Egg Porsche Challenge at Montreal. It's Nick Sanchez, Stephen Wilson completing the podium at this time, and we're starting to see some pit stops here right before the competition yellowtail approach, so I wonder if we might see people trying to play the track position game.
It's possible. It's going to be an interesting gamble for some of these drivers to see if they can maybe find a way to put James Davison a little bit further back with everybody else not coming down pit road when this competition caution comes out, and have James Davison do a little bit of work once we go back green flag racing. That's going to be interesting to see, but of course he decides to throw a curveball and come down pit road himself before the competition caution, so that will change everything, along with Nick Sanchez, Stephen Wilson, and DJ Cummings. So pretty much our entire top 5 will come down pit road before the halfway break.
Justin Prince, as the pit strategist amongst our trio, what are you seeing from these drivers, and why are they coming down pit road now? And then why did James Davison respond to all the early pit stops and make a stop himself?
Well, it's similar to what was seen by many drivers in the IMSA Pro Series challenges last year, where they knew there was a competition caution around the middle of the race, so they came in just a couple minutes before that competition yellow to come in for their scheduled service, to be able to take care of that service already and keep their various track positions. Everyone else, as a result, if they stay on the lead lap, will likely have to come down for respective service, like Anthony Alfredo, who's going to acquire the race lead here, for example. So this is a call for them to make sure they keep the track position, knowing that others are going to likely do it to try and pick up positioning themselves on the racetrack.
It is track position over tire wear and fuel levels, basically, as the caution flag comes out there right on the nose. 25 minutes completed in this race on the clocks we have here in Sim. So this is where we get our first yellow flag, hopefully the only full course yellow flag of the evening, but a competition caution to bring the field back together. And after the first 25 minutes, Justin Prince, I think if there's one constant that we've seen, it's that these drivers are going to struggle to race each other if they're having as much trouble with the track as we've seen in the opening few laps.
Yeah, I think so. It's going to be really intriguing how things fare when it comes to the restart for many of these competitors here, especially with the dominance that has been James Davis's run so far. He's been quick from the get-go. He's been consistent. He's been getting quicker and quicker as the fuel is burned. It's going to be difficult to try and catch up to him, I think, once the green flag flies, to see. It's going to be the major thing of who's going to be able to try and pass him on the restart.
Plenty of time, though, before we get to that point. So we'll take a quick commercial break, but don't go anywhere. We've got more action coming to you from Quebec. This is coverage of the Monday Night Racing Big Green Egg Porsche Challenge from the circuit Gilles Villeneuve on Podium eSports.
There's a place where fire and flavor are celebrated, where grilling traditions and new techniques are perfected. Here in Big Green Egg Country, you can grill it, roast it, smoke it, or bake it. It's the most versatile grill you'll ever own. Simple delight, easy to use, comes with a free lifetime warranty. Have it delivered to your door by a certified dealer in your community and start enjoying the ultimate cooking experience. Shop online for home delivery at biggreenegg.com. That's biggreenegg.com.
Matt's Pappas Innovations provides the best wheels for the best drivers. At MPI, we take every aspect of construction and safety to our heart in the most accurate and dedicated way possible. Before becoming an MPI product, our structures need to pass an internal quality control test. Our goal has been to apply our experience and knowledge to produce a state-of-the-art product for the racing community. MPI is a part of multiple champions across all of motorsports, including 13-time NASCAR champions, World of Outlaw champion, IndyCar, NHRA, and V8 Supercar. MPI, shaped by a racer for the best racers. We are an industrial flooring company specializing in custom floors and drains. We don't believe in the one-size-fits-all approach to flooring, and neither should you. When you choose Tufco, we consult with you about your needs, industry requirements, and factor in numerous variables. After assessing your facility, we engineer your floor and drains, then install everything ourselves. That's the Tufco way.
Visit our website at tufcoflooring.com.
Tonight's broadcast of Monday Night Racing is brought to you by Max Pappas Innovations, who's partnered with Monday Night Racing to hold a contest on Twitter for a weekly giveaway. Over the past week, race fans have been tweeting for their shot to win. We're proud to announce that the winner of the contest and the $25 gift card is, by the fans' decision, the winner of tonight's race. A little bit of respect for the challenge that is road course racing. This all brought to you by our friends at MPI, the world's premier manufacturer of steering wheels that was founded in 2009 by Max and Tatiana Pappas in Mooresville, North Carolina. MPI takes every aspect of construction and safety to heart to build their products in the most accurate and dedicated way possible. MPI partners have claimed 13 NASCAR championships, 4 World of Outlaws championships, 2 IndyCar titles, 2 Australian Supercar titles, and 1 NHRA championship. Max Pappas Innovations, shaped by a racer for the best racer. Find out more information at www.maxpappasinc.com. As these drivers come down pit road for service, we're going to see if we can get a word with our Bryant Shock Technologies in-race reporter, who happens to be the man who won his way into the round of 7 after claiming victory at Rockingham 1 week ago. It's the driver of the number 21 machine, Max Kenner, now joins us. And Max, this is a tricky combo to come out here and try and get yourself into the round of 4 from after a very different kind of racing last week. How tough has this second Gilles Villeneuve been for you in the opening 25 minutes?
Absolutely. It's definitely different. I've never considered myself much of a road course driver. I had a little run in there with the curbs about 10 minutes in that first opening session, spun out, had to go take my fast repair. Also got into Kobe Moore, didn't mean to do that, but it's definitely a challenge. We'll see what we can do here for the second half. Keep it on the track.
For those who don't know your 9 to 5 and or other times elsewhere job, as we've seen with some of the folks from Monday Night Racing, just let the folks know a little bit more about what you do at KBM.
At KBM, I just graduated college, so I'm kind of like doing like a half internship kind of deal there, and they have me 3D print things like the grill openings and the side mirrors, stuff made out of like PLA plastic and CLA type of materials, just to see how aerodynamic they would be, mainly on the super late models, so it's a good deal.
Super late model fun all the way around. We know that there's a pretty big operation down that front. Max, thanks for the time, and we look forward to seeing you in just a little bit.
Alrighty, thank you.
There's Max Kennett, our in-race reporter. As everybody gets lined up here, I believe we're probably looking at a green flag. How about it? Shouldn't be too shabby now, should it? I would think, because lights are indeed off the pace car, and we'll get set to go green flag racing in just a few moments. Taylor Burris, what do you expect out of the second half of the race?
Well, one of the things that we are expecting as we're getting ready to take the green flag here is a lot of different things. Same thing we saw before. Davison joined to try and see if he can take over this opportunity to pull away, as in fact the whole field is kind of spread out for this green flag start here as they work their way through the field. So this could cause a little bit of issues, James, for what's going on.
How about Will Rogers, though, with a big move to try and get inside of Gary Sexton? They're dicing it up way towards the back of this field and doing a very nice job is Will Rogers to jump up a few spots on the fresh tires and gain a little bit of track position. Max Kennan with a pretty good fight. He's Stephen Ellis. He's trying to fight with the 21 machine, and they're all sort of bunching up against each other.
Yeah, and keep in mind that some drivers took tires, some took fuel only in this sequence for these pit stops here. So this is going to be interesting to see for some of the drivers how they fare. Keep in mind, for some drivers, they feel comfortable by double stinting the tires for a race such as this, essentially a sprint race for many of these competitors, despite being the 50-minute total for tonight. But for others, they have been seen fall off by a significant portion of their times from the start of the race, so it's understandable for some of them why they would gamble and take the tires.
You saw James Davison get around the number 14 machine of Dylan Welch, which we're going to come back to here in just a few moments as Dylan gets rolling, only because Dylan traditionally has a spotter with him each and every week. Chris Wilner from the Motor Racing Network and NASCAR Productions. Those two longtime childhood friends, they both grew up in Indiana together, and all of us at Podium eSports want to say congratulations to Chris, spotter for Dylan, who just today got engaged to his girlfriend of 6+ years, Maggie Contreras. Those two have traveled across the country and landed in Charlotte, and now are set to be husband and wife. So a huge shout out and congratulations to everybody in that camp. We know that Dylan and his significant other, Hannah Newhouse, were pretty well involved in the actual proposal earlier today. Seen some great photos on social media. So a big congratulations to Chris and Maggie, and no doubt that Dylan and Hannah had a lot of fun getting that one prepped together as we get set to rock and roll with the second half of this race. We turn our eyes to all the onboard action here in the Pig machine that you see trying to chase down James Davison. Stephen Wilson not letting the 33 car go whatsoever.
Certainly is not. Has actually gained a little bit of ground, and last time around was actually faster than James Davison. Here he comes looking to the inside, a layup and Gatto. Cannot get to the inside yet as Davison throws the block as they come out of there, heading down the Casino Straight. A great battle between the top two as they work their way down the Casino Straight.
This is where it really comes together. I almost wonder if Stephen Wilson was just sort of laying in the weeds and waiting for his moment Justin Prince, because I don't think we saw this pace in the first half of the race from Stefan, but since we got the green flag back out, I feel like he's really actually trying to turn it up to 10 and go for it at this time.
And keep in mind, Wilson took tires, Davison took fuel only for their sequences. 16 seconds or so with a pit stop for Davison, 37 seconds for Wilson for comparison. And one of the main consistent points for a 20-minute race this season, James, for the Porsche Taycan eSports Super Cup has been tire wear at the end of the runs, drivers struggling with grip towards the end of those races. You have to wonder if it may have been a mistake from Davison to go for the shorter stop and take the gamble, yes, to keep the track position, because Wilson's now right on his tailpipe and could provide a ton of pressure by trying the contra strategy.
This is the most pressure that James Davison has fought over the course of this race, and by a significant margin too, because we got through that first, and Davison was clear by about maybe, 3.5 seconds, I think it was, before the yellow flag came out. Now it's maybe 2 or 3 car lengths instead of seconds. And oh, by the way, let's not forget about Nick Sanchez either, Taylor Burris. Sanchez is just out of the picture, but he's only a few seconds back of these two, so if Wilson and Davison start bouncing off of each other and get into each other and cause some sort of trouble, Sanchez will be right there, and it could be a 3-car battle for the race lead.
It certainly can. About 3.5 seconds separate Nick Sanchez from race leader James Davison. Right now, there you see him in shot as they go down to the casino straight. Stefan Wilson, though, is looking to a peek to the inside as they head to the final set of chicanes towards the Wall of Champions. But thinks better of it. He still knows he has time to make a pass work with 16 minutes left to go on the clock as they come across the start-finish line here. But these two heavy hitters in both IndyCar, stock car racing, and other forms of road course racing are battling it out here at Montreal.
So Davison and Wilson are still pretty well tied together. We'll keep you updated as it looks like we've got more action there. Coming out of the Wall of Champions was that Ruben Garcia, who was sideways. Indeed it was. The driver out of Mexico City ended up in trouble, and it looks like he may have been the first casualty of maybe not necessarily the Wall of Champions, but the chicane. A little bit of contact with Preston Pardus in the 90 machine. You'll see it on your screens here, but they come down into the final chicane, and Pardus, I think, may have clipped one of the curves, and it might have unsettled the car enough that it just couldn't quite lay off Garcia. Or I would say, actually, no, JP, that's probably more of a case of crossing apexes and Pardus getting back into the gas a little bit sooner than Garcia was able to.
If anything, Pardus actually locked up the brakes and did a phenomenal job at first to try and avoid initial contact, but it was those differences, the apex, I think, that played in the major factor in that incident. But now, those drivers have lost significant time. But look at what's happening towards the front now as Wilson has a chance to get the slipstream here.
Wilson has the opportunity to maybe, just maybe, make something happen on the outside, and he will go all the way to the grass. But Davison's going to cut him back and cut him off and extend the gap by maybe 2 or 3 car lengths. But Stefan Wilson is there, and I think over the course of the final 15 minutes or so of this race, it could be a tremendous battle between these two for the race win, and they are both gapping Nick Sanchez by about 1/10 to 2/10 every single lap they come across the start-finish line. So this is Davison and Wilson versus at this stage.
Pretty much so, as we now watch on and see Preston Pardus trying to get his way up through the field right now, trying to get around Garrett Miller, makes a bump right there, one tap, goes to the inside, will try to move his way up into the top 10 and set his sights now on Gary Sexton as they come out of the S's, heading down underneath the Napa Bridge.
Pardus has got some work to do in order to keep up with the other playoff contenders. That's the big issue he's fighting at the moment, because he's got 2 spots before he can get to Anthony Alfredo and then Will Rogers and Nick Degroot. Those are the folks that Pardus is really trying to at least hang with in this race. And we don't know how Chicagoland's going to play out next week, but last thing you want to do if you're Pardus is leave yourself any sort of hole to dig out of, especially when it's a car and track combo that by all accounts is maybe a little bit more suited to you than the Xfinity car. Not to say that Preston can't drive both of them, but we know he's a road course specialist more than anything else, so this you would figure would be the place where he'd pick up the points.
Yeah, absolutely, as it's just a matter of making those right and smart moves right now. If he tries to overpress the car, I think that's going to be the major issue. You can say the same thing for Wilson up towards the front. He takes an over-aggressive move, that could potentially cost him an opportunity later on. So at this point, it's just picking your marks, waiting for the right opportunity. Right now, there's under 9 estimated laps to work with and under 13 minutes on the board for some of these drivers to try and make their moves.
You see TJ Majors there had to really check up on the exit out of the Wall of Champions. It was tight for him, as there's plenty of good racing here from about, call it 10th or 11th on back. Preston Pardish and Gary Sexton in the mix. Kobe Moore's really the first one who sort of snuck out of this, but Pardish, more importantly, going to be able to clear Sexton in the first hairpin down the back, or first chicane rather, down the back straight, and that will move Pardish up into 9th. So P-Money get one more spot. You see him on your screens there. Just trying to go chase after Kobe Moore, who you saw in the foreground ever so slightly. And once again, just that little flash of yellow and white, the factory back colors, of course, on Moore's number 15. But that's the man that Preston Pardish is trying to chase down to gain maybe just that one extra point that might help him come the end of next week.
Certainly so. We'll have to keep an eye on his progress. Meanwhile, another great battle that just happened is between Nick Degroot and Will Rogers, the battle for 5th position. Rogers was able to make a great pass on Nick Degroot before they got to that final set of chicanes, before they made the run toward Les Epingales. You'll see him starting to pull a little bit of a gap now as they go down the Casino Straight. Little lap traffic in front of him right now, but he will not catch him just yet as they head through the final set of chicanes, heading over towards the Wall of Champions, just barely inches away from that wall as they come out of there. But Will Rogers now back into the top 5 and has a little bit of ways to go, though, to catch up to DJ Cummings, who's about 12 seconds up the road.
Cummings and Rogers pretty well separated, and it looks like Cummings is now in that first straightaway, coming up towards the first chicane on the back as Rogers makes his way under the Napa Pieces Alto Bridge, which I would imagine, Justin Prince, the translation on that would be fairly obvious. I would hope.
One of the battles looking an eye on. Look at that, Max Kennan moving Garrett Miller out of the way in turns 1 and 2. And Baron Senna, in fact, making a bit of contact there with Garcia now joining the fray. Keep in mind that Kennan also needing some valuable points. Came in tied with Rogers on points to start the round of 7.
Max Kennan definitely could use a few points. He just snuck his way into the round of 7 after winning last week at Rockingham. And this, I think, by comparison to Preston Pardish, who we know is a road course specialist, this feels much more like a hold-serve type of track. You would figure that Chicagoland of the Xfinity cars is more in Max Kennan's wheelhouse. But for the moment, he's just trying to hang on and make sure that he keeps Ruben Garcia at bay, much less lose any points to Pardish or an Alfredo or a Degroot or Rogers and company.
Certainly so, as we keep an eye on that. Kobe Moore just got passed now by Preston Pardish for that 8th position, but we're still keeping an eye on that battle for the race lead. Under 10 minutes to go. Stephen Wilson trying to make a pass before they get to that final hair chicanes now as they work their way through the first set as they cross the start-finish line underneath the Napa Bridge. But Wilson's really putting the pressure now on James Davison as they come through this next set of chicanes right here. Just pretty much everywhere you turn, you have to deal with a set of chicanes here at Gilles Villeneuve as they work their way underneath the Montreal Bridge, heading towards that final set before they head down the back straightaway.
The final portion of the back straightaway that leads to the hairpin at the far end of the circuit at L'Épingle. So we'll keep our eyes peeled and see how they charge down this final run, which can get a little bit tricky since it's not necessarily a straight line. I think that deceives a lot of people. There are slight bends on these straightaways, but especially as you come into some of these chicanes, it's not necessarily dead-on entries that you get into some of the tightest spots in the racetrack, Justin Prince, and it means you can't be braking and turning.
Oh, trouble up at the front.
But trouble at the front indeed. James Davison got into it, I think.
Yes, Wilson sent it right underneath him into turn 10 and hit James Davison in the door and spun Davison out.
Didn't even bother holding it down. You'll see the replay here, but just a big move from the inside. Stephen Wilson got down to the bottom once they came through L'Épingle, and all of a sudden, it was into the door of James Davison and Stephen Wilson to the race lead, TV.
Certainly so, as we will have to see if Davison can have anything for Stephen Wilson now in these closing minutes with that contact. Had a little bit of ground to make up about 2.7 seconds, but Stephen Wilson better get going. Otherwise, Davison, I'm pretty sure with that NASCAR background, will probably try to use the chrome horn a little bit here towards the end if need be.
I have a hunch he's not going to wait around too much if he can get back to the number 25. That much is certain. Meanwhile, you look a little bit further back, it's TJ Majors, who's done a very nice job recovering. He had a torrid time in the first half of this race, but has used the competition caution in the middle to perfection. And after being as far back as 21st early on, up to P8 now. So very nice recovery run for the spotter of the number 22 car in the NASCAR Cup Series, JP.
Yeah, he's one of the examples of drivers who have learned this track and gotten used to these cars as this race is going on and is really adapted to his scenarios and situations. I think right now this is the highest he can potentially get unless there's trouble in front, since it's about nearly 8 seconds to Anthony Alfredo. But Majors, your biggest mover for a reason. Great job by TJ Majors. Of course, a lot of sim experience to boot as well, as talked about in the past.
Plenty of experiences. Right on board with Preston Pardus, who's just behind Kobe Moore and TJ Majors. We'll remind you that tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Tufco Flooring, an industrial flooring company specializing in custom floors and drains. Tufco doesn't believe in the one-size-fits-all approach, and neither should you. Tufco listens to your needs and requirements and develops custom solutions for every client. For more information, you can visit their website at www.tufcoflooring.com. Lots of good battles on track, although this may well be the best of them, so we'll hang tight with Majors, Moore, and Pardus, especially given the kind of implications that this can have on the playoff battle if Preston Pardus can manage to gain these 2 spots. We don't quite know how critical they'll be once next week wraps up and we're done with our Xfinity Series race at Chicagoland, but you can see already just looking at live points, he's only in the championship 4 by 1 spot over Max Kinnon. So P-Money absolutely could use these 2 positions on the racetrack, and he is certainly within striking distance as we work our way inside the final 5 minutes and change.
He certainly is. He's about half a second back from Kobe Moore, and then another 0.6 of a second back from TJ Majors, running in 10th and 9th position. So Preston Pardus trying to critically find his way up through the field as you're on board with Gary Sexton, another driver who's working his way up the field, trying to find a way around Ruben Garcia, Max Kinnon, but he has Brendan Madonia on his inside right now, as you'll see them 2 side-by-side battles as they head through the chicane. We will see Garcia get around Kinnon, and Gary Sexton will hold off. Brendan Madonia has a little bit of almost slight contact, so Garcia actually is going to be under heavy contact, battling right here between Gary Sexton as they work their way down the straightaway heading to Les Epingal. Almost going to go 3 wide for this battle right here. Still going to be 2 wide between Sexton and Max Kinnon as they come out of there.
Those are points that Max Kinnon needs desperately, and points that he does not need to be giving up at this stage. He looks like he's going to give up a spot to Brendan Madonia as well, so he checked up just to make sure that he could let Ruben Garcia through, and he almost checked up too much because it drew Gary Sexton from about 2 car lengths back to be right on Max Kinnon's bumper, and now he's going to get squeezed out right near the wall of champions, and Kinnon will go back to 50th. So that's even more points that he's going to have to worry about as Stephen Ellis ends up in some form of trouble, which means Kinnon's going to gain 1 more spot back, but that will increase the gap to Preston Pardus. And that's the thing. We just don't know how important those points are going to be. Look at the lap point standings now. It was a 1-point difference. It's now a 3-point difference, but still not what you want to see happen if you are Max Kinnon, who immediately tries to charge back and get the spot back from Gary Sexton. I think he knows he needs these points at the end of this.
Yeah, at this point, you want to get every single point possible, because think of it this way. Those points, you may never know, again, how big the separation would be between you and anyone for the cut line to be able to fight for a championship. So the pressure absolutely is on to try and get those positions back. The problem is going to be trying to get the passes done. And meanwhile, up towards the front, keep in mind, things have separated out a lot since that Wilson-Davidson battle. It's up to more than 3 seconds between Wilson and Davidson. And this top 5 separated by 13 seconds. Max Kinnon a bit of contact though in the hairpin.
Max Kinnon bouncing off of Brendan Madonia to try and get that spot back, which he does. So Kinnon now back up to 13th. Could try and go charge after Sexton and Garcia next, but they're a little bit further up the racetrack. But everybody in the top 5 well sorted. The first proper battle, go back to P8. That's where TJ Majors and Kobe Moore are as we enter the final 3 minutes in tonight's Big Green Egg Porsche Challenge in Montreal.
Certainly so, as you're right on board with Kobe Moore as they come out of the first set of chicanes, heading down underneath the bridge before they head to the second set here. Moore trying to see if he can find his way to the inside of TJ Majors as you see them hitting the curbs. Preston Pardus right there in striking distance, ready to try and gain those 2 spots for him in order to get that little bit extra cushion into the next round of the playoffs.
Every spot matters, I think, if you are Preston Pardus and if you are Max Kennan, and they're the ones right in the thick of this. And let's also not forget that you go a little bit further back, Stolnek is in a battle with Ford Martin to try and maintain his P15 run, and he could end up losing some points too if he's not careful. So still a lot to race for in the closing minutes in Montreal. We shall see how it pans out, but I think in P-Money's case, he just hasn't really been able to gain on any one of TJ or Kobe. They've all been pretty much dead even on lap times, although you wonder if Preston has 1 or 2 more tricks up his sleeve that he's held on to throughout the majority of this race and may well try and pull at the very end.
Yeah, that's the big question, but the problem is you see that right side, you have to wonder how much that is hurting him aerodynamically, send down some of these straights, which hurts some of his ability to slipstream closer to these cars in front. There's a bit of help as Moore, I believe, hit the wall.
Big moment for Kobe Moore, who smacks the wall of champions. I think that might be the first time we've seen that into the field tonight. But Pardus immediately there to take advantage to the opening set of corners. Can he get clear on the outside? It just won't stick. Kobe Moore's still going to be there. But Pardus had a moment. He tries to stay alongside, but he can't do it. And Kobe Moore will take that 9th spot back and just hang on to it over P-Money.
So close, yet could not be able to complete the pass. Meanwhile, back up at the front of the field, Stephen Wilson, James Davison. That gap has closed just a little bit, but there might not be enough time for Davison. It's about 1.9 seconds between the 2 drivers as they work their way down the casino straight. Nick Sanchez, another 4 seconds back as they head through the final set of chicanes. This should be the white flag lap.
Should indeed be the white flag lap. So it's going to take a big mistake from Stephen Wilson to lose this one. But we've seen stranger things happen as Wilson begins the final lap of this big green egg Porsche challenge. Meanwhile, Madonia has managed to get around Max Kennan again. So Kennan back to 14th. Preston Pardus still trying to fight his way around Kobe Moore. And Anthony Alfredo, Nick Degroot, Will Rogers in a train in 5th, 6th, 7th. Those are the names you want to keep an eye on as we carry on through this final lap.
Yeah, some of these are going to be very intense, absolutely. But I think for others, traffic is going to play a major factor here because that did lose Wilson a little bit of time here up at the very front as the confirmation's in for the timing. It's just right now, Wilson, all he needs to do is stay in the track limits. Don't get any slowdowns because if he gets any, then Davidson likely pounces.
That and or any of the major mistakes. That's the key for Stephen Wilson, who is searching for his first crack at victory in Monday Night Racing, and will get it if he can hang on through these final few corners. One more run through Lippengow and down the casino straight into that final chicane with the Wall of Champions, which is about the only thing that could stop him. If he bends it J.R. Hildebrand style in the final corner, then maybe, just maybe, it might be an opportunity for Davison. But Stephen Wilson, with all the experience, likely going to be okay. Bounces off the curves once, twice, and give it to Stephen Wilson, who will come to Quebec and claim victory in the Big Green Egg Porsche Challenge in Season 2 of Monday Night Racing. Round 15 of the year of the first race. The round is 7 to Stephen Wilson, and a big send there from James Davison, which I think tells you everything you need to know about how he feels with regards to the contact that he and the 25 had about 2/3 of the way through this race, Taylor.
Certainly so. I mean, pretty much Davison had that race won, but all the way so. Even though there's a little bit of maybe a little bit of upset about that, but still a little bit of camaraderie. Davison still congratulating Wilson on this win.
Everybody cleaning house and trying to finish this off. Meanwhile, Kobe Moore is going to beat Preston Pardus to the line. So Pardus will take that last spot in the top 10. And Max Kennan actually lost another spot. So he's back to 15th, trying to fight his way through the corner. You see some of the cars on screen. This pack of people with Stolnek and Miller. Everybody fighting for the final few bits of spots. But it's going to be Beaudoin, then Stolnak, then Miller, then Kennan, who slides to 15th after running about 12th and 13th through a good chunk of this race, and not a good way, I think, for Kennan to start his round of 7, especially losing as many spots as he did late. How much will or won't that haunt him when we finish up at Chicagoland next week? That's the big question at the end of all of this. But for now, it's time to go through your full field rundown and tell you where your favorite driver finished. It's Stefan Wilson who gets the victory, his first win in Monday Night Racing ahead of James Davison. Nick Sanchez completes the podium, one of his best runs since he won in the Street Stocks in Phoenix back in December. DJ Cummings was 4th tonight. Will Rogers with a solid P5 that'll put him in solid shape to advance into the Championship 4 come next week. Nick Degroot, Anthony Alfredo finishing right behind him, so not much changing between some of our Championship 4 contenders. TJ Majors was 8th, Kobe Moore 9th, and Preston Pardis loses a few points to his playoff compatriots, but still comes home with a solid 10th place run, Justin.
11th spot goes to Ruben Garcia with Beaudoin in 12th position. Should note that 12th position got very heated in the closing stages, James. Matt Stolnak able to make a move late to get to 13th. Miller 14th. Kennan got shuffled to 15th after late race contact. Ford Martin and Gary Sexton round out the top 17 with the 69 machine in 18th spot. The first driver 1 lap down. Font 19th. Justin Maloro, rough race, 2 laps down in 20th.
In 21st will be Stephen Ellis, followed by Dylan Welch in 22nd, Greg Stump in 23rd, and Paul Sutton riding in, of course, the last spot, 24th.
There's your full field rundown from tonight's Big Green Egg Challenge at the circuit Gilles Villeneuve. And we wait for our podium finishers to come in. We're going to hear from all of Stephen Wilson, James Davison, and Nick Sanchez momentarily. But I think, Taylor, it was you that talked about the bid stealers who might play a factor in tonight's race. And lo and behold, here we are. It's a non-playoff driver who gets the victory.
Certainly so, which means one less position is up for grabs in order for these drivers to guarantee a spot in the final 4 in a couple of weeks' time, which, I mean, it's very critical for these drivers. So if you think tonight's race was very interesting and exciting, let's get ready for Chicago in the Xfinity cars. A lot of Xfinity talent in the field coming through the field here tonight that we're going to probably see battling it out for the race win. Of course, drivers such as Anthony Alfredo, Nick Degroot, of course, is the defending champion, so we know he's going to be battling pretty well. Preston Pardis, of course, an Xfinity Series driver as well, who will be battling for a shot at being in the Final 4.
We'll turn our attention to the man who finished 3rd tonight. We'll go ahead and begin our Podium Universe. Taylor Burris, we'll turn it right back over to you. We'll chat with P3 in tonight's race, Nick Sanchez.
Here with Nick Sanchez. Nick, very quiet night for you here, but comes home with a 3rd place finish. How was the conditions of the tracks for you and how everything was for you?
You know, I know it was a 50-minute race, but it felt like a race. You know, it was just quiet, not much action for me. I damaged my car there at the end. I think that probably cost us possibly a win, but, you know, it was just pacing around there for.
Well, with that, you know, we look ahead to the next round at, of course, Chicagoland with the Xfinity cars. Your thoughts on that track as we come to get ready to come to a close for Monday Night Racing Season 2?
You know, Chicagoland's always a fun track, and with the best package, I say, in stock car, Xfinity car, it should be fun.
Well, before we let you go, Nick, is there anyone you would like to say thank you to?
Will Rogers for not wrecking me.
All right, well, that is Nick Sanchez coming home in 3rd position here tonight. Justin Prince, I believe, if we're ready, I believe we have our 2nd place driver, James Davison, with you.
Yes, indeed, and James dominated the first half of this race, and much overall of the lap totals led towards your direction. But talk us through, James, that battle for position. 23 laps led out of the 31 completed tonight.
Yeah, look, I just screwed myself, to be honest. I fueled the car to the top on the pit stop, and so I was running too heavy, and at the same time I did that, Stefan was driving very well, and it just wasn't possible to overcome the extra weight I was carrying along with how well Steph was driving. And obviously there was a bit of contact there, which was him giving it a go to try and win it. So that's just racing, and I've only really got myself to blame for coming up a bit short tonight. But at the same time, I'm happy for Steph because he's a very good, underrated driver. Who deserves some more breaks in his career than he's had. And we're good friends. We usually work together in this kind of stuff. But it was a fun race regardless, and he drove well. So sometimes what's the saying? You can't win them all, I guess.
Indeed, you mentioned the heavier fuel, for example. What else do you feel you could have done differently to try and, in the end, try and hold on to the race victory? Because you were quick, very quick, in the first run, up towards 3-4 seconds up at the front to start.
Yeah, obviously with a restart, everyone's close together, and this track that's full of straights, you can't break the toe, really. The toe exists from over a second back. So, like I said, with how heavy I was running and how competitive Steph was as well in his own right, it was just impossible to overcome that. And in terms of the lunge he put on me, I mean, he was pretty far back, and obviously, he clipped my quarter panel. So, you know what I mean? It was, obviously a bit of a lunge from far back. But again, if you don't try, and he knew that he had a shot, and that was probably his only chance of getting by me, having towed on me down the back straight, and I defended the inside. So Steph gave it a go, rubbin's racing, as they say, and, I came off a bit short. Where, it was a bit of a nail in the coffin is when I kind of recovered the spin and I was 3 seconds behind. Then I was out of his toe, and I just could never get a run on him being out of the slipstream. So, yeah, it was just Steph's day, and like I said, I'd like to have finished first, but good job to him.
Next race for the series goes over to Chicagoland for the Xfinity Series cars. Will we see you there? And if so, what's your expectations for that race?
Yeah, I'd like to be there. I've ran competitively in a couple of these stock car races. Obviously, at Richmond was a good one for me. So, and Homestead. So, I don't quite have the edge that I do on the ovals against some of these guys, but I've been competitive, so I've just got to, keep chipping away at it and find these little fine details that these experts have, and see where we end up at the end.
Good run tonight. Congratulations on the P2 finish, James.
Thank you.
That's James Davison coming home in second tonight, James. Over to you, James Pike.
Too many Jameses in here. I know it's a problem, and I wish I could help, but there's only so much I can do on that front. What we can do, though, is talk to our race winner for the very first time. Stefan Wilson is a winner in Monday Night Racing. And Stefan, I feel like we look at this race, it very much felt like two halves to you, because the first half of this race, before we had the competition caution, whether or not you were figuring the track out or couldn't quite get it hooked up the way you needed to, I don't know. We'll see what you say in a moment, but it seems like there was a night and day difference when we got to the second half of this race after the competition caution. Nobody had been able to run with James Davison throughout this event. And then we go back to Green Flag Racing. You're right there. So what clicked? What changed in that stretch?
I was just, I jumped on for the first time today to sort of figure this out, and, came into the race, and I figured I had a good understanding of what I needed to do, and I just failed to execute in qualifying. Just choked, maybe pushed a bit too hard. Really, tried to get everything out of it, and end up making mistake on all 3 laps, which put me in a disadvantage to start the race. So I started P5, and from there on, for the first half, it was just kind of like, okay, don't crash, and let's just move forward and get into that clean air. And I kind of knew that at the halfway point, with the yellow coming out, that was going to reset the race. So if I could just get to P2, that'd be racing with James. And from there on, I I thought, maybe I had the pace to run with him. I thought that it was, it was going to be very difficult to beat him. But, obviously he made the mistake in the pits, and that gave me just the edge I needed to really stalk him the whole of that second half of the race.
You come away with the victory, and it's a very quickly growing roster, an impressive roster of Monday Night Racing winners when you've got the Degroots and the Kligermans, the Alfredos, Kyle Busch is in there, Ryan Vargas, James Davison, who you just beat, Ron Capps, Preston Pardis, just some of the names, Garrett Smithley as well. It's still young in Monday Night Racing's history, but to be there this early and be in that kind of company, certainly a fun little feather in the cap, I would think, no?
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's kind of the monkey off my shoulders because, there's been a couple of races this year where, I've called them woulda, shoulda, couldas, because I think it was the stadium trucks or the off-road trucks at the Glen. I felt like I had a really good shot there, and then Fontana were leading and then spun on the green-white checkered restart. Even Talladega in the IndyCar, I felt like I was running really strong, and again, bad luck sort of struck, and we didn't get the win there. So just it feels like relief to get a win in this series, and it sounds silly to put that much pressure on yourself for a sim race, but you just listed off some of the most accomplished names in motorsport in real life. So to be racing against some of those guys, and it's such a fun race. I mean, that I don't know what James said about that race, but the last half, me and him, I mean, we were going hammer and tong, and it was just a really exciting race to be a part of. And I mean, it's a shame that the contact happened. I felt like I could get my nose in there and was hoping he would see me and give me enough room, but it didn't quite happen.
We turn into the wheelhouse of some of those drivers that we just mentioned. There's certainly a stock car bent to Monday Night Racing. We go back towards that side of things next week. It's the Xfinity cars at Chicagoland, so you'll have the extra horsepower to work with. What do you expect we'll see besides the nuttiness of a playoff cutoff race, in addition to all the fun we'll have in the Windy City next week?
Yeah, no, that'll be a really fun race. The Xfinity cars, they produce such great racing, especially on iRacing, and obviously on the 1.5 mile as well. So I think it'll be really challenging and definitely out of my wheelhouse. But I'm a racer and I love racing, and it doesn't matter what it is, anything with four wheels and an engine, and or anything that propels it for that matter, and I'm all about it. So I'm definitely trying to explore the other sides of racing and find opportunities wherever I can to go real life racing, as well as doing it in the sim. So
plenty of places to do that Monday Night Racing with the amount of combos that get explored over the course of a season. Stefan, congratulations on your first victory in Monday Night Racing from all of us at Podium eSports. Thanks for the time, and we'll see you in Chicago next Monday night.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Stefan Wilson, your race winner, who leads us out of Montreal, and we turn a little bit further west. We'll stay near a, body of water, I suppose. We'll just change it out from a river to a lake. We'll get to Chicago next week, but there you see the playoff standings after tonight's race, and you see what kind of gap Max Kinnon has to fight for himself. Preston Pardis stays in the mix with a top 10 finish, but it's Stolnick and Kinnon who have the work to do, and then Gabe Wood, who has to win in order to have a shot. If Wood wins, it changes everything, but it will be Pardis, Stolnick, Kinnon, I think, fighting for the final spot in the championship four, unless we see something nutty from one of Degroot or Alfredo or Rogers, which again, maybe not necessarily expected, but we can't totally rule that out. Such is the nature of racing in Monday Night Racing, Taylor.
Certainly is the case. As we know, Monday Night Racing is always providing great entertainment and surprise winners throughout the season. And it's just going to be a matter of time to see who can come out on top at Chicagoland next Monday night. So for all of you who are watching on all of our streaming services, make sure to go and watch it next Monday night. It's going to be exciting.
Should be a lot of fun, Justin Prince, and so much that we can talk about coming up in the next week. Yes, it's a build week for iRacing, so no official competition, but just because there is an official competition doesn't mean we aren't busy at Podium. Tomorrow night, the Porsche Club of America finally goes endurance racing. The masses have been answered, and the members of the PCA are finally here and ready to party. We'll go to Sebring for an hour and a half racing these very same Porsche 911s RSRs. You can see that broadcast right here on twitch.tv/Podium2, the PCA Sim Racing YouTube channels, and then Podium's Twitter and Facebook tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern, or if you like, hang tight, have fun, and we'll do some dirt sprint car racing from Kokomo. We'll turn our attention to the next round of the Dirt Sprint Car Championship Series a little bit later tomorrow night. You can see that on twitch.tv/Podium2 as well. Friday night, it's round number 2 of the Zone Group Challenge for PCA Sim Racing coming your way from Sonoma Raceway. That broadcast will start at 8 p.m. Eastern on youtube.com/PCA Sim Racing. Also, twitch.tv/Podium2 and Podium's Facebook and YouTube pages. Same places you can find the MSRA Premier Series next race round number 5 of their season from Phoenix Raceway. Will be Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, and that too you'll find on Podium 2 on Twitch, and then the Podium eSports Facebook and YouTube pages and Twitter. The MPI Cup Series heads to Auto Club for their next event this upcoming Monday, March 14th, 9:15 p.m. Eastern start time on the main Podium eSports Twitch channel. And then we're back at it with the penultimate race of the season. We will know our championship 4 next Monday night, March 15th, 8 p.m. Eastern. It's the Xfinity Series cars at Chicagoland Speedway for the right to fight for the title. All coming your way on twitch.tv/Podium2, as well as Podium eSports, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter page. That will conclude tonight's broadcast, but not before we get a few final words from Justin Prince. We'll make sure we give Justin his due, so let the Canadian lead us out with his final thoughts of what we saw here in Canada and what we can expect in Chicagoland next week.
Some great racing, some great battling tonight. First things first, with some great strategy mixed in there as well. It's talked about with the fuel strategy for several different drivers, but ours also thinking about tires and in turn seeing those differences come into play towards the end of the race. A lot of the positions ended up coming down, I think, James, to who took tires and who took fuel and added too much fuel in turn, and we've seen the results of that throughout the night. But for Chicagoland, it's going to be very interesting since it's going to be a brand new build. It's going to be one where we expect some potential opportunities for the track to open up. We'll have to wait and see. And it's also going to be an interesting one to see who's going to be able to do well to get themselves into the Championship 4, because the 4 drivers that are currently in those 4 spots right now are all 4 drivers who are very solid stock car racers, whether in real life or in the virtual world. It's going to be difficult for the rest of the drivers trying to look their way into the Championship 4 to be able to claw their way in, I think, because they're going to need some luck in some cases to be able to make sure they get in for sure.
Again, we can't rule anything out, though, so don't be afraid to expect the unexpected. But they're all questions we'll have to answer next Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Podium 2 Twitch channel, and then Podium's Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter pages. We'll find out the answer to all these questions and find out which 4 drivers will be competing for the Monday Night Racing Season 2 champion. That concludes our coverage of tonight's Big Creed and Porsche Challenge from the circuit Gilles, Villeneuve, in Montreal here on Podium eSports. The 15th round of Monday Night Racing is in the books. Stefan Wilson, a winner for the very first time. For all of us at Monday Night Racing, first and foremost, Ford Morton, Paul Sutton, and Race Control, Josh Mendoza. For our team at Podium eSports, Cisco Scaramuza, Gary Sexton, John Theodore, tonight's producer Ryan Bauer, and my colleagues in the booth, Taylor Burris and Justin Prince. I am James Pine, the voice of Podium eSports. Thank you so much for watching our broadcast on Monday Night Racing from Montreal. We look forward to seeing you in Chicago next Monday night.